the hook. The storage facility's fluorescent lights buzz overhead like angry wasps as Marcus slides the metal door up with a metallic screech. Unit 47B exhales decades of trapped air, dust motes dancing in the harsh afternoon light, carrying the scent of old leather and forgotten ambitions. He's been doing estate cataloging for 12 years now, ever since the stunt work dried up and his knees finally surrendered to gravity's relentless demands. Most of the time, it's just glorified garage sale preparation for grieving families who can't bear to sort through their loved ones' debris themselves. But Jimmy Woo wasn't most people. Marcus steps into the cramped space, his trained eye immediately cataloging the contents with professional efficiency. Cardboard boxes stacked floor to ceiling, each one meticulously labeled in Jimmy's precise handwriting. Enter the Dragon. Props, Way of the Dragon. Wardrobe, Fist of Fury. Misk. The organizational system of a man who understood that chaos in filmmaking meant death, or at least very expensive reshoots. A plastic folding table wobbles under the weight of Marcus's laptop as he sets up his mobile office. The insurance company wants a complete inventory within 72 hours, every item photographed and valued for the estate. Jimmy's niece in Portland needs the money, and she's never understood why her uncle kept all that old kung fu junk anyway. Marcus pulls on latex gloves and opens the first box. Nunchucks wrapped in yellowed newspaper, fake throwing stars that wouldn't cut butter. A collection of contact lenses in various colors, brown, green, one startling blue pair that makes him think of Steve McQueen's eyes in The Great Escape. Each item gets photographed, measured, described in clinical detail that strips away the magic these props once held on screen. By 4 o'clock, sweat has soaked through his UCLA t-shirt twice. The facility's air conditioning apparently considers this corner unit a lost cause, and Marcus is starting to agree. He's worked his way through 15 boxes without finding anything particularly valuable, mostly reproductions and low-end props that might fetch decent money on eBay if the buyer doesn't look too closely. Then he finds the film canisters. They're nestled in a wooden crate that looks older than everything else in the unit, wrapped in what appears to be genuine silk cloth. Marcus lifts the first canister carefully. 16mm film stock, the kind that went out of fashion when video cameras became affordable. The label reads Private Training, July 1972 in faded ink, followed by initials he doesn't recognize, JW, BL, CN. His breath catches. Jimmy Woo, Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris. But that's impossible. Every biography, every interview, every documentary about Lee's final years maintains that his training sessions were intensely private affairs. Lee was notorious for his secrecy, for keeping his evolving techniques away from cameras and curious eyes. The only footage that exists of him training came from carefully controlled demonstrations or his own personal film sessions. Marcus examines the canister more closely. The film stock is pristine, stored in climate-controlled conditions that preserved it better than anything else in this sweatbox. Professional-grade equipment, not some fan's bootleg recording. Someone with serious money and technical knowledge created this. He finds 6 more canisters in the crate, each labeled with different dates spanning from June to August 1972. The summer before Lee flew to Hong Kong to film Enter the Dragon, the summer that would prove to be his last. The logical thing would be to include them in the inventory, let the estate deal with authentication and legal issues. Marcus has learned not to get emotionally invested in other people's treasures, but his hands are already transferring the canisters to his own bag, moving with the muscle memory of someone who once made a living borrowing things that didn't belong to him on movie sets. His phone buzzes, a text from Sarah asking if he'll be home for dinner. His daughter worries about him since the divorce, calls him twice a week to make sure he's staying engaged with life. At 26, she's inherited her mother's gift for making concern sound like gentle disappointment. Marcus types back, working late. Save me some leftovers. He locks up the storage unit with half the inventory still uncatalogued, knowing he'll have to return tomorrow to finish the job. But tonight, he has other plans. The old 16mm projector in his garage hasn't been used in years, but Marcus maintained it religiously. A habit from his stuntman days when proper equipment maintenance meant the difference between a perfect take and a trip to the emergency room. The drive home takes 23 minutes through Burbank's early rush hour traffic, but Marcus's mind is already racing ahead to his garage, to the ritual of threading film through metal guides, to the mechanical clicking of sprockets catching celluloid teeth. He's probably holding nothing more than outtakes from a legitimate documentary project, maybe some behind-the-scenes footage that Jimmy shot for his own records. But the careful storage, the secretive labeling, the very fact that these canisters were hidden away for 50 years, it all suggests something more significant than simple archival footage. Sometimes the most dangerous secrets really are hidden in plain sight. The ordinary world. Marcus pulls into the driveway of his rental house at 6:47 p.m., the same modest craftsman bungalow he's called home for 8 months now. Ever since the divorce settlement forced him to sell the place in Studio City that he and Linda had shared for 19 years. The neighbors probably think he's having a midlife crisis. This aging Chinese-American guy living alone with his garage full of old film equipment and boxes of stunt gear gathering dust. They wouldn't be entirely wrong. The house feels too quiet when he enters through the side door, his footsteps echoing off hardwood floors that Linda would have covered with the Persian rugs she inherited from her grandmother. But Linda took the rugs to her new place in Santa Monica, along with the good furniture, the wedding photos, and most of the life they'd built together. What remained was functional: a couch that had seen better decades, a kitchen table scarred from years of Sarah's homework sessions, and a refrigerator covered in outdated takeout menus. Marcus sets his laptop bag carefully on the counter, hyper-aware of the film canisters nestled inside. The weight of them seems disproportionate to their size, like they're made of something denser than aluminum and celluloid. He opens the refrigerator and stares at its sparse contents: leftover Chinese food, a 6-pack of Corona with 2 bottles missing, condiment bottles that probably predate his marriage. His phone rings. Sarah's contact photo fills the screen, her radiant smile at her college graduation 2 years ago, the last time Marcus remembers feeling unequivocally proud of something in his life. "Dad, you're not answering my texts." "I answered your text. That was 3 hours ago. I was starting to worry you fell into a storage unit and couldn't get out." Marcus laughs despite himself. Sarah has inherited his dark humor along with Linda's organizational skills, a combination that makes her an excellent production coordinator and a formidable daughter. She works for a streaming company now, the kind of place where everyone under 30 makes more money than Marcus ever did risking his neck for action sequences. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just had an interesting day at work." "Interesting how? Please tell me you found something cooler than that collection of fake swords from last month." Through the kitchen window, Marcus can see his garage, where the 16mm projector waits under a canvas tarp like some mechanical oracle. Maybe. Still figuring it out. "Dad." Sarah's voice shifts to the tone she uses when she's about to deliver unwelcome advice. "You know you can't keep stealing random artifacts from these estate jobs, right? It's going to get you in trouble eventually. I don't steal. I borrow. For research purposes." "Research for what?" "You're not making documentaries anymore." The words hit harder than she intended. Marcus has pitched 17 documentary projects in the past 5 years. Stories about forgotten stuntmen, the evolution of fight choreography, the untold history of Asian American performers in Hollywood. Every pitch meeting ends the same way: polite interest followed by gentle rejection. Too niche, not enough broad appeal, maybe consider a different angle. "I'm still a filmmaker," he says, knowing it sounds defensive. "I know you are. But maybe it's time to think about something more stable. That production coordinator position I mentioned is still open. It's steady work, good benefits, and you'd be around people again instead of spending all day in dusty storage units." Marcus pictures himself in an office, scheduling meetings and managing budgets, watching other people create while he facilitates their vision. The thought makes his chest tighten. "I'll think about it." "Promise?" "Promise." After hanging up, Marcus stands in his kitchen listening to the house settle around him. 43 years in Hollywood, first as a struggling actor, then as a stuntman, finally as a documentary filmmaker. And this is what he has to show for it: a rental house, a failed marriage, and a daughter who worries he's losing his purpose. The truth is more complicated. Marcus knows exactly what his purpose is, He just can't seem to make anyone else care about it. The stories he wants to tell, about the Asian performers who built careers in the margins of an industry that barely acknowledged their existence, about the quiet revolutionaries who changed how fights looked on screen, these stories matter. They matter because they're his stories too, the history he lived through and helped create. His father would have understood. David Chen had spent 30 years as a cameraman, working on B-movies and exploitation films, capturing moments that would never win awards but would live forever in the cultural memory. He died when Marcus was 28, too young to appreciate what his father had accomplished, too arrogant to ask the right questions. Marcus retrieves his laptop bag and heads for the garage, flipping on the overhead lights. The 16mm projector sits exactly where he left it 6 months ago, clean and ready despite its age. Around it, boxes of his own archival footage create a maze of personal history. Interviews with aging stunt coordinators, behind-the-scenes material from forgotten films, fragments of the documentary career that never quite achieved the recognition he'd hoped for. Tonight, though, might be different. Tonight, he might finally have stumbled onto something that matters. Marcus pulls the canvas tarp away from the projector with the reverence of a priest unveiling an altar. The Bell & Howell 16mm machine emerges like a mechanical relic from a more tactile era of filmmaking, its metal body reflecting the garage's harsh fluorescent light. He'd bought it 15 years ago from a retiring film professor at USC, along with the white screen now mounted on the opposite wall between Sarah's childhood bicycle and a stack of moving boxes he still hasn't unpacked. The first canister opens with a soft pop of released air. The film stock inside looks pristine. Someone knew how to store this properly. Marcus threads the leader through the gate with practiced precision, muscle memory guiding his fingers through the familiar ritual. The projector's fan hums to life, casting a rectangle of white light across the garage that transforms the mundane space into something expectant. He dims the overhead lights and hits the switch. The image that flickers to life stops his breathing entirely. A private training studio, sparse and functional, hardwood floors, mirrors along one wall, and there, unmistakable in his simple black training outfit, is Bruce Lee. Not the polished icon from Enter the Dragon or the philosophical master from television interviews, but the man himself, loose, relaxed, demonstrating a technique to someone outside the frame. The camera work is professional, steady. Multiple angles suggest at least 2 cameras, maybe 3. This isn't some bootleg recording or stolen glimpse. This is a carefully planned documentation of something that officially never happened. Chuck Norris enters the frame, and Marcus's world tilts sideways. The two legends move through combinations with the fluid precision of masters. Lee demonstrates a trap and counter sequence, breaking it down step by step, while Norris mirrors the movements with the focused intensity that would later make him a star. There's no sound. 16mm film of this era often ran silent, but Marcus can read the conversation in their body language, the mutual respect evident in every gesture. Then Lee steps back and says something to Norris. Even without audio, Marcus recognizes the famous posture, the slight smile, the beckoning gesture that matches every eyewitness account of that legendary moment. Hit me. Norris hesitates, a flicker of uncertainty that humanizes the future action hero. Lee's expression grows more insistent, encouraging. Around them, the studio holds its breath. What happens next violates everything Marcus thought he knew about martial arts history. Instead of the lightning-fast demonstration of Chi Sao that every biography describes, Lee suddenly staggers backward as Norris's punch connects with devastating force. Not a controlled demonstration, a real hit. Lee's face contorts in genuine pain, and he drops to one knee, clutching his chest. The camera doesn't waver. Professional instincts keep it rolling as chaos erupts in the training studio. Figures rush into frame, men in suits who definitely don't belong in a martial arts dojo. One of them barks orders while another helps Lee to his feet. Norris backs away, hands raised, his face a mask of confusion and mounting horror. Marcus's finger hovers over the pause button, but he can't bring himself to stop. The film continues for another minute, long enough to capture Lee's forced smile as he waves off assistance, long enough to see money changing hands between the suited men, long enough to record the moment when someone notices the camera and points directly at the lens. The image goes black. Marcus sits in the sudden darkness of his garage, the projector's fan the only sound. His hands are shaking. What he just witnessed contradicts 50 years of martial arts mythology, challenges the fundamental story of two icons whose friendship became legend. Every biography, every documentary, every tribute to Bruce Lee's final years describes that training session as a perfect demonstration of superior technique. This footage shows something else entirely, a setup, a fraud, maybe even the beginning of a cover-up that shaped how the world remembers one of its greatest martial artists. The garage door's automatic opener groans to life, flooding the space with headlights. Sarah's Honda Accord pulls into the driveway, and Marcus can hear her footsteps approaching. He quickly shuts off the projector and rewraps the film canister, his movements sharp with sudden panic. "Dad? Your lights are on out here." She appears in the doorway, still wearing her production company jacket, concern creasing her features. "Everything okay?" Marcus forces a smile, hyper-aware of the film canister in his hands. "Just checking on some old equipment. At 9 o'clock at night?" The weight of what he's discovered settles on his shoulders like a physical burden. He could tell her everything. Sarah's worked in Hollywood long enough to understand the implications of historical footage. But something holds him back, maybe the same instinct that made someone hide these canisters for half a century. "Sarah," he says carefully, "if you found something that could change how people think about history, but sharing it might destroy someone's legacy, what would you do?" She studies his face in the harsh fluorescent light, reading the subtext he's not ready to articulate. "I'd probably want to know the whole truth first." "Why? What did you find in that storage unit?" Marcus looks at the canister in his hands, then at his daughter's trusting face, and realizes he's standing at the edge of a choice that will define everything that comes next. The ordinary world he knew ended the moment he threaded that film through the projector. Marcus watches Sarah's expression shift from casual concern to focused attention, her producer's instincts recognizing the weight behind his hypothetical question. The garage feels smaller suddenly, the shadows deeper, as if the space itself is conspiring to keep secrets. "Just some old training footage," he says finally, the lie tasting bitter. "Probably nothing important." But Sarah doesn't move from the doorway. "Dad, you've been different lately, more distant. And now you're out here at 9 p.m. asking me ethical questions about destroying legacies?" She crosses her arms. What's really going on? Marcus sets the film canister on his workbench, trying to appear casual while his mind races. "How do you explain that you've just witnessed something that could rewrite martial arts history? That the foundation story of two legends might be built on a lie so fundamental it threatens everything their millions of fans believe? Sometimes I wonder if the truth is worth the damage it causes," he says, not quite meeting her eyes. Sarah steps into the garage, and Marcus resists the urge to step protectively in front of the projector. "Is this about Mom? About the divorce?" The question catches him off guard. "What? No, this isn't." "Because you've been carrying guilt around like luggage for 8 months now. Maybe it's time to put it down." Marcus almost laughs at the irony. His marriage ended because he couldn't let go of the past, couldn't stop chasing stories that nobody wanted to hear. Now he's holding the biggest story of his career, and his first instinct is to bury it deeper than Jimmy Woo apparently did 50 years ago. "This is different, sweetheart. How?" The simple question hangs in the air between them. How is it different? Because Bruce Lee is dead and can't defend himself? Because Chuck Norris has built a career on the mythology of that training session? Because exposing the truth might destroy the inspiration that thousands of martial artists have drawn from their legendary friendship? Or because Marcus is terrified that once again nobody will care about the story he's desperate to tell? "I need time to think," he says. After Sarah leaves, Marcus sits alone in the garage with the film canister, turning it over in his hands like a puzzle box whose solution might unlock more than he's prepared to handle. The metal is warm now, heated by his touch and the overhead lights, but it feels heavier than when he first discovered it. The rational part of his mind, the part that sounds increasingly like Sarah, argues for caution. Authentication first, research, verification, find the other canisters, study the footage frame by frame. Understand the context before drawing conclusions. Document everything properly. Build an airtight case. Then approach historians and martial arts experts with the evidence. But another part of him, the part that once made his living jumping from buildings and crashing through windows, wants to drive straight to the nearest news station and watch the martial arts world explode. He retrieves his phone and scrolls through his contacts until he finds Tommy Liu, an old stuntman friend who now teaches Wing Chun in Chinatown. Tommy trained with some of Lee's original students, knows the politics and personalities that shaped the Los Angeles martial arts scene in the 70s. If anyone would understand the implications of this footage, it would be him. Marcus starts to dial, then stops. Tommy worships Bruce Lee with the fervor of a true believer. Learning that his idol's most famous training demonstration was staged, or worse, might shatter something fundamental in his friend's worldview. The phone feels heavy in his hand. How many people has Marcus already imagined disappointing? Sarah, who wants him to find stability. Tommy, who reveres Lee's memory. The countless martial artists who draw inspiration from the story of two masters testing their skills in private. And what about Chuck Norris? The man is still alive, still active. If this footage becomes public, it could destroy his reputation, undo decades of goodwill and respect. Does Marcus have the right to make that choice unilaterally? He sets the phone aside and stares at the projector, its metal surface reflecting the garage's fluorescent light like a mirror. His father would have known what to do. David Chen understood the weight of being behind the camera, of capturing moments that could define or destroy lives. But David is 20 years dead, taking his wisdom with him. Marcus opens his laptop and creates a new folder on his desktop. He labels it Private Training, July 1972, and stares at the empty directory. 6 more canisters wait in his bag, 6 more pieces of a puzzle that might be better left unsolved. But even as doubt gnaws at him, he knows he's already made his choice. The moment he threaded that first film through the projector, he crossed a line from ignorance into knowledge. There's no path back to not knowing, no way to unsee what he's seen. The only question now is what he'll do with the truth, and whether the truth is worth the price he'll inevitably pay for it. Marcus stares at the empty directory on his laptop screen, the cursor blinking like a metronome marking time he no longer has. Each pulse seems to count down the moments before someone else discovers what Jimmy Woo spent 50 years hiding, before the choice gets taken away from him entirely. He reaches for his phone again, this time scrolling past Tommy's number to find Dr. Elena Vasquez at UCLA's Film Preservation Department. Elena has authenticated historical footage for 3 of his documentaries, approaching each reel with the methodical precision of a forensic scientist. If anyone can verify what he's seen, provide the technical analysis that transforms wild discovery into legitimate evidence, it's her. But calling Elena means admitting this is real, means crossing from private knowledge into shared conspiracy, dragging someone else into whatever web of deception these films represent. The thought makes his chest tight with an anxiety he recognizes from his stuntman days. The moment before a particularly dangerous gag when retreat was still possible, but commitment meant accepting whatever consequences followed. Marcus sets the phone down and retrieves the remaining 6 canisters from his bag, arranging them on his workbench like evidence at a crime scene. Each one bears the same careful labeling in Jimmy Woo's precise handwriting, dates, locations, technical notes that suggest a level of documentation far beyond casual recording. This wasn't amateur hour. Someone invested serious money in planning into capturing these moments. The second canister is labeled Aftermath, July 30th, 1972, 8 days after the training session. Marcus threads it through the projector with hands that have stopped shaking, replaced by the steady focus that comes with irreversible decision. This time, the footage shows a different location, an office, expensively furnished in early 70s executive style. Bruce Lee sits across from 2 men in suits, one of whom Marcus recognizes from the training studio Chaos. Lee looks composed but tired, a small bandage visible on his left temple that wasn't there in the first film. The conversation is clearly tense despite the lack of audio. Papers exchange hands, contracts maybe, or agreements. Lee's body language shifts from resistant to resigned as the discussion progresses. Money appears again more than before, thick envelopes that one of the suited men slides across the polished desk. Then Chuck Norris enters the frame, his usual confidence replaced by obvious distress. He gestures emphatically at Lee, pointing to his own hands as if explaining or apologizing. Lee waves him off with forced magnanimity, the same public smile Marcus has seen in countless interviews. But the camera catches something the public never saw, a moment when Lee thinks nobody's watching and his face crumples with what might be pain or shame or both. The film ends with handshakes all around, the artificial camaraderie of people bound together by mutual secrets. Marcus stops the projector and sits in the darkness, pieces of a conspiracy beginning to form a recognizable shape. This isn't just about two martial artists in a training session gone wrong. The suits, the money, the careful documentation. This has the texture of organized damage control, maybe even orchestrated deception. His laptop chimes with a text from Sarah. "Dad, I'm worried about you. Call me tomorrow, okay?" The concern in those words cuts deeper than intended. His daughter sees what he's been too stubborn to acknowledge, that his relentless pursuit of forgotten stories has isolated him from the people who matter most. The irony isn't lost on him that just as she's begging him to let go of the past, he's discovered the biggest piece of hidden history in his career. Marcus opens his laptop and begins typing, his fingers moving with sudden decisiveness. "Elena, Marcus Chen here. I need to meet with you tomorrow about some footage that requires immediate authentication. Historical significance could be substantial. Are you available?" He hits send before second thoughts can stop him. Then he opens a new document and begins writing everything he remembers from both films, every detail that might prove crucial later. The process feels like taking field notes during a stunt, methodical documentation of something dangerous that can't be undone once it begins. Halfway through his notes, Marcus realizes what he's really doing. He's not just documenting evidence, he's building a case file, preparing for the investigation that will consume his life once this story breaks. The transition from accidental discoverer to active participant happens without fanfare, marked only by the steady click of keys and the growing certainty that he's already past the point of no return. His phone buzzes with Elena's reply, available at 2 p.m. "What kind of footage are we talking about?" Marcus types back, "The kind that changes everything." After sending the message, he looks around his cluttered garage, at Sarah's old bicycle, at his boxes of failed projects, at the projector that has become his gateway into 50-year-old secrets. This familiar space suddenly feels like a launching pad rather than a refuge, the last moment of his ordinary life before stepping into whatever comes next. Tomorrow he'll show Elena the footage. Tomorrow the secret stops being his alone. Tonight, for the last time, he can pretend he still has a choice. Marcus wakes to his phone buzzing insistently against the garage workbench where he'd fallen asleep. Sunlight streams through the dusty window, illuminating motes of dust that dance around the film canisters like tiny guardians of secrets. His neck aches from sleeping in the folding chair, and his mouth tastes like stale coffee and poor decisions. The caller ID shows Elena's name. He checks the time, 7:30 a.m., 5 hours before their scheduled meeting. "Marcus, we need to talk before this afternoon." Elena's voice carries an edge he's never heard before. "I did some preliminary research after your message last night. What exactly are you involved in?" "What do you mean?" Marcus sits up straighter, instantly alert despite the lingering grogginess. Someone else has been asking questions about Bruce Lee training footage. Yesterday, a man claiming to represent the Lee estate called the department, looking for any materials that might have surfaced recently. He was very specific about footage from July 1972. The garage suddenly feels smaller, the morning light less comforting. "Did you tell him anything?" "I told him we hadn't received any such materials. But Marcus, these kinds of inquiries don't happen by coincidence. Either you've stumbled into something that's already in motion, or someone knows you have what they're looking for." Marcus looks at the canisters arranged on his workbench, their innocent appearance suddenly feeling like camouflage. "How could anyone know? I only found them yesterday." Storage facilities keep records, surveillance cameras. Maybe Jimmy Woo told someone about the footage before he died. The point is, you're not operating in a vacuum anymore. Elena pauses. "If this is what I think it is, you need to understand the stakes." Historical footage of Bruce Lee could be worth millions at auction. People have killed for less. The word killed hangs in the air like smoke. Marcus thinks about the suited men in the footage, their casual handling of large amounts of cash, the way they took control of the situation with practiced efficiency. 50 years ago, but men like that don't just disappear. They evolve, adapt, pass their methods down to successors. I still want you to see the footage, Marcus says, but maybe not at UCLA. Agreed. There's a private screening room at Cinelux Studios on Sunset. I can access it through a friend. 2 p.m. still works, but Marcus, bring everything. If we're doing this, we need the complete picture. After Elena hangs up, Marcus sits in the silence of his garage, feeling the weight of invisible eyes on him. His phone shows 3 missed calls from a number he doesn't recognize. No voicemails, but the calls came in 15-minute intervals starting at 6 a.m., someone being methodical, persistent. He gathers the canisters in his notes, stuffing everything into a duffel bag with hands that have started shaking again. The familiar garage that felt like a launching pad last night now feels like a trap, too exposed, too predictable. If someone knows about the footage, they know about him. And if Elena's right about the stakes involved, they won't hesitate to take whatever steps necessary to recover what they consider their property. Marcus loads the bag into his truck and backs out of the driveway, checking his mirrors with the paranoid attention of someone who's watched too many conspiracy thrillers. The residential street looks normal. Joggers, dog walkers, the usual suburban morning rhythm. But normalcy no longer feels trustworthy. Every parked car could conceal watchers. Every pedestrian could be reporting his movements. He drives aimlessly for 20 minutes, taking random turns and doubling back on his route, feeling simultaneously foolish and necessary. This is what fear does. Transforms ordinary caution into elaborate theater, makes you question every shadow while knowing that somewhere in the paranoid performance lies genuine threat. His phone rings again, the same unknown number. This time, he answers. Mr. Chen. The voice is calm, professionally neutral, with just enough authority to suggest this isn't a telemarketing call. My name is James Morrison. I represent certain parties with an interest in materials that may have come into your possession. I believe a conversation would benefit us both. I don't know what you're talking about. Yesterday afternoon, you removed several items from a storage facility in Burbank. Items that were never meant to be part of Jimmy Woo's estate sale. There's been a misunderstanding, Mr. Chen, one that can easily be corrected. Marcus pulls into a gas station parking lot, his heart hammering against his ribs. Who is this? Someone who knew Jimmy Woo well. Someone who helped him keep certain secrets for 5 decades. Jimmy's death was unexpected. Arrangements he'd made to recover these materials weren't completed before the estate sale, but the rightful owners are prepared to be generous in rectifying this error. And if I'm not interested in generosity, the pause that follows carries more menace than any explicit threat could manage. Then we'll need to explore other options, Mr. Chen. I hope that won't be necessary. You have a daughter in West Hollywood, I believe? Sarah? She works for Paramount Pictures. The line goes dead. Marcus stares at his phone, understanding with crystalline clarity that the secret world has found him. Marcus sits in the gas station parking lot, Morrison's words echoing in his mind like a death sentence. The morning sun beats through his windshield, but his hands are ice cold as he grips the steering wheel. They know about Sarah. The fact that these people, whoever they are, can reach his daughter transforms this from academic curiosity into mortal terror. He fumbles for his phone, speed-dialing Sarah's number. It rings 4 times before going to voicemail. Her cheerful recorded voice, so normal and alive, makes his chest constrict. Sarah, it's Dad. Call me immediately when you get this. Don't go anywhere alone today. I'm serious. Call me. The words sound insane even as he speaks them. The paranoid rambling of a father whose documentaries about government cover-ups have finally pushed him over the edge. But the film canisters in his duffel bag are real. Morrison's calm, professional threat was real. The danger circling his family is as tangible as the sweat dampening his shirt. Marcus starts the truck and drives toward West Hollywood, abandoning any pretense of evasive routes. If they're watching him, they already know his patterns. His only advantage now is speed. reaching Sarah before Morrison's people decide conversation isn't sufficient. At a red light on Sunset Boulevard, he calls Elena. "Change of plans," he says when she answers. "We need to meet now, and we're not going to any screening room." "Marcus, what's happened?" "Someone just threatened my daughter to get these films." "Professional-grade threat, Elena. These people know things about me, about Sarah, that require serious resources to discover." The silence on the line stretches long enough for the light to change and traffic to flow around him. Finally, Elena speaks, her voice tight with understanding. "Jesus, okay. There's a self-storage place in Silver Lake where I keep some of my personal collection. It's off-the-grid cash rental, no real names. Can you meet me there in an hour?" She gives him an address that he repeats back twice, his mind struggling to hold details while cycling through scenarios of Sarah walking alone to her car, riding elevators with strangers, sitting in restaurants with her back to the door, all the ordinary vulnerabilities that become potential death traps when professional killers enter the equation. "Elena, if something happens to me, these films need to be preserved. Whatever story they tell, it's worth killing for. That makes it worth saving. Nothing's going to happen to you. We're going to figure this out." But her voice lacks conviction, and Marcus realizes she's thinking the same thing he is. They've moved far beyond the academic problem of authenticating historical footage. They're now players in a conspiracy that has already demonstrated its willingness to threaten innocent people. Marcus reaches Sarah's apartment building in West Hollywood and circles the block twice, looking for anything suspicious. Occupied cars, people loitering, the subtle wrongness that might indicate surveillance. Everything looks normal, but normal has become meaningless. Morrison's people could be anywhere, invisible until the moment they choose revelation. He parks and climbs to Sarah's second-floor apartment, knocking with more urgency than subtlety. When she opens the door, still in pajamas and holding a cup of coffee, the relief nearly buckles his knees. "Dad, what are you—" "Pack a bag. You're coming with me." Sarah's expression shifts from surprise to concern as she takes in his appearance. Rumpled clothes from sleeping in the garage, the wild-eyed intensity of someone who's just learned the difference between paranoid fiction and documented reality. "Dad, you're scaring me." Marcus pushes past her into the apartment, checking windows, sight lines, escape routes with the desperate efficiency of a man whose stunt experience has suddenly become survival training. "Remember when you asked if this was about the divorce? About carrying guilt like luggage?" He turns to face her, seeing his own fear reflected in her eyes. "This isn't guilt, sweetheart. This is consequence. And it's bigger than both of us." "What are you talking about?" Marcus considers how much to explain, weighing her safety against her right to understand why her life has just been turned upside down. The film canisters in his truck represent 50 years of buried truth, but protecting Sarah means potentially burying that truth forever. People died to keep certain secrets hidden. Now someone thinks I know too much. He moves to her bedroom doorway. "Pack clothes for 3 days. We're going somewhere they can't find us while I figure out how to end this." Sarah sets down her coffee cup with shaking hands. "Should I call the police?" "And tell them what?" "That someone threatened us over film footage they haven't seen of events they can't verify involving people who've been dead for decades?" Marcus shakes his head. "We're on our own until I understand what we're really dealing with." As Sarah disappears into her bedroom, Marcus positions himself at the window overlooking the street. Somewhere out there, Morrison's people are making their own preparations, their own approaches. The only question is who reaches their objective first. The game has begun, whether Marcus chose to play or not. The knock on Sarah's door comes exactly 10 minutes after she zips her suitcase closed. 3 measured raps that sound nothing like a neighbor or delivery driver. Marcus feels his blood turn to ice water as he recognizes the professional cadence, the calculated politeness of someone who doesn't need to force their way in because they know you'll open the door voluntarily. "Expecting someone," he whispers. Sarah shakes her head, her face pale as understanding dawns. They both freeze in the living room, listening to the silence that follows. No shuffling feet, no repeated knocking, just the patient stillness of people who have all day to wait. Marcus moves to the window and peers through a gap in the blinds. 2 men in dark suits stand in the courtyard below, their positioning too precise to be casual. One speaks quietly into a phone while watching the building's exits, The other checks his watch with the bored professionalism of someone accustomed to surveillance work. Back door? Marcus asks. Or fire escape, but it leads to the alley. They'll have it covered. Marcus grabs Sarah's bag and his duffel, his mind racing through the tactical realities of their situation. These aren't street criminals or desperate amateurs. Morrison's people move with the coordinated efficiency of professionals who've done this before. We're going up, roof access. Then we figure out how to get down somewhere they're not watching. They climb the apartment building's narrow stairwell, their footsteps echoing in the confined space. Marcus tries to remember everything he learned during his stunt years about urban escape routes, fire escapes, adjacent buildings, the geometry of pursuit in residential neighborhoods. But that knowledge feels theoretical now, disconnected from the reality of running for his daughter's life. The roof access door opens onto blazing morning sunlight and a view of West Hollywood that would be beautiful under different circumstances. Marcus can see his truck parked on the street below, probably already under surveillance. The film canisters in his duffel bag feel heavier with each step, their weight disproportionate to their size, as if 50 years of buried secrets have acquired physical mass. There, Sarah points to the adjacent building, separated by an alley gap of maybe 8 feet. The architecture studio. I know the owner. Marcus studies the distance, the height differential, the concrete surfaces that will offer no forgiveness for miscalculation. 20 years ago, this would have been a routine stunt jump, probably requiring multiple takes to get the perfect camera angle. Now it represents the difference between escape and capture, between protecting his daughter and watching Morrison's people take her as leverage. You first, he says, dropping both bags and helping Sarah gauge the approach. Don't think about the gap. Focus on the landing spot and trust your momentum. Sarah backs up, takes 3 running steps and launches herself across the alley with the unconscious grace of someone who's never doubted her father's judgment about physical challenges. She lands cleanly on the opposite roof, rolling to absorb impact exactly as Marcus taught her during childhood games that seemed like innocent fun but were actually survival training. Marcus throws the bags across, watching his duffel containing the film canisters arc through empty air. If it splits open on landing, if the canisters crack and expose the footage to light, then 50 years of conspiracy dies with him on this rooftop. But the bag lands safely, and Marcus steps back for his own approach. That's when he hears the stairwell door slam open behind him. Mr. Chen. Morrison's voice carries clearly across the rooftop, calm and reasonable despite the circumstances. This is unnecessary drama. We simply want to discuss a business transaction. Marcus turns to see Morrison emerging onto the roof, younger than the voice suggested, maybe 45, with the lean build of someone who maintains excellent physical condition. He's alone but moves with the confidence of someone backed by overwhelming resources. The footage you found was never meant to be discovered, Morrison continues, approaching slowly with empty hands visible. Jimmy Woo was supposed to destroy it decades ago. He chose sentiment over safety, and now we're all dealing with the consequences. What really happened in 1972? Morrison's smile contains no warmth, nothing that matters to anyone still breathing. Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris are both dead, Mr. Chen. So is everyone else who was in that room. The only people these films can hurt now are the living, including your daughter. Marcus glances across the alley where Sarah waits on the opposite roof, close enough to hear this conversation, far enough to potentially escape if things deteriorate further. The mathematical precision of the moment strikes him. Morrison needs the films intact, which means he can't risk a struggle that might damage them. But that protection only extends as long as Marcus has possession. The films leave here with me, Marcus says. That's non-negotiable. No, Mr. Chen, that's impossible. Morrison's expression hardens into something recognizably dangerous. Too many people have worked too hard for too long to keep this buried. You're asking me to destroy 50 years of careful work for the sake of your curiosity. Morrison reaches into his jacket, and Marcus realizes with crystalline clarity that the ordeal has truly begun. Morrison's hand emerges from his jacket holding not a gun, but a small tablet computer. He taps the screen twice, then turns it toward Marcus. The image makes his heart stop. Sarah's face fills the screen. Not from across the alley where she stands now, but from inside her Paramount Pictures office. The timestamp reads yesterday, 3:47 p.m. She's laughing at something off camera, completely unaware she's being watched. The clarity is professional grade. The angle suggesting a surveillance system far more sophisticated than office security cameras. We've been monitoring your family for 18 months, Mr. Chen, ever since Jimmy Woo's cancer diagnosis. We knew this day would come eventually. Marcus feels the world tilting beneath his feet. 18 months? Your daughter's promotion to assistant producer wasn't entirely merit-based. Paramount Pictures has been very accommodating to certain requests for access and placement. Sarah's office, her apartment, her car, all thoroughly documented. We know her schedule better than she does. The tablet screen shifts to a new image. Sarah entering her apartment building this morning, coffee in hand, completely oblivious to the telephoto lens capturing her movements. Then another, her car in the Paramount parking garage, with a clear view of the license plate and parking spot number. Morrison swipes to a final image that stops Marcus's breath entirely. His own garage workshop, photographed through the window. The film canisters are clearly visible on his workbench, along with his notes and the projection equipment. The timestamp reads 2:14 m.m. while he slept upstairs. You've been 3 steps behind since you found those canisters, Morrison says. The only reason you're still alive is because we needed to assess exactly what Jimmy Woo preserved. Now we know. Dad? Sarah calls from the opposite rooftop, her voice tight with fear. What's happening? Morrison raises his voice without taking his eyes off Marcus. Your father found some old movies, Sarah. Very old, very dangerous movies. Movies that certain people would prefer to keep private. Marcus realizes with sickening clarity that the rooftop confrontation isn't random desperation. It's theater, designed to demonstrate the futility of resistance. Morrison could have taken the films from his garage at any point, could have intercepted them at the storage facility, or during any of his movements over the past day. The chase, the threats, even this moment on the roof, all carefully orchestrated to show Marcus exactly how powerless he is. The truth about your father was just the beginning, Morrison continues, his voice carrying easily across the morning air. David Chen wasn't just Bruce Lee's training partner. He was our insurance policy. The man who documented what happened in that training room because certain parties needed proof of what Bruce Lee was capable of when pushed beyond his limits. Marcus's legs go weak. My father worked for you. Your father worked for people who understood that legends are more valuable than truth. Bruce Lee's death in 1973 made him worth millions in perpetuity. But the footage he and Chuck Norris created in 1972 would have destroyed that value permanently. The tablet screen shifts again, displaying a black and white photograph Marcus has never seen, his father standing behind a professional camera, clearly filming something off frame. Bruce Lee is visible in the background, but his expression isn't the controlled focus Marcus remembers from movies. Lee looks wild, uncontrolled, frightening. The sparring session went too far, Morrison explains. Bruce Lee had been experimenting with certain pharmaceutical enhancements. When he called Chuck Norris into the ring that day, he wasn't testing technique. He was testing whether he could seriously injure a man of Norris's caliber while maintaining plausible deniability. Marcus thinks of the footage he screened, the moment when Lee's expression shifted from friendly challenge to something predatory. He was trying to hurt Chuck. More than hurt him. The footage shows Bruce Lee attempting to permanently cripple one of Hollywood's rising stars. If that film had surfaced in 1973, it would have destroyed Lee's legacy and cost the studio system hundreds of millions in lost revenue. Morrison approaches closer, his confidence absolute. Your father understood the economics involved. He took the money and kept the secret, bought your childhood home with it, paid for your education, established the trust fund that's still supporting your documentary work. You've been living off Bruce Lee's attempted assault for 50 years. The words hit Marcus like physical blows. Everything he thought he knew about his father, about his own life, crumbling with each revelation. The man he remembered as principled and honorable had been a paid conspirator, complicit in covering up what amounted to attempted murder. The films come with us, Morrison says. extending his hand. And you disappear. New identities, relocation assistance, enough money to start over anywhere in the world, both of you. And if we refuse? Morrison's smile returns, cold and final. Then Sarah's promising career at Paramount Pictures ends very tragically. Industrial accidents happen. Sound stages are dangerous places. Marcus looks across the alley at his daughter, seeing his own defeat reflected in her eyes. Morrison has systematically destroyed every option, every hope, every possibility of resistance. The films that promise to reveal truth will instead buy their survival, at the cost of everything Marcus has ever believed about justice, integrity, and the man who raised him. The bag containing the canisters sits between them like a loaded gun, its contents too dangerous to preserve and too valuable to destroy.